Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. When Wednesday arrived and I opened Disney Plus, I was expecting to see the finale for the Book of Boba Fett series. What I didn't expect was an hour-long episode. This little miniseries so far has packed so much content into its short runtime that I was afraid we wouldn't have enough time to get to everything. And while this finale episode does its best to tie off all of those loose ends, the battle itself is more of your standard Disney-style affair. A bunch of fancy set-piece battles that look really cool, but if you look a little closer, they don't really make any sense at all. And so today I thought I'd bring back an old series where we break down some of the most interesting battles in Star Wars and point out what they could have done better. And so, without further ado, everything wrong with Boba Fett's army during the Battle of Mos Espa. And yes, there'll be a lot of nitpicking and Monday morning quarterbacking in this video. Boba Fett has turned a new leaf over. He's seen enough death and destruction, and now he's at a point where he's willing to give people the benefit of the doubt instead of shooting them on sight. Only individuals who are fully suited in armor can afford to be so generous and kind to the scum of Tatooine. But his strange methods seem to have worked somewhat. In just a short time, he's built up a small army that is either loyal personally to him or loyal to the city of Mos Espa and don't want to see it get destroyed by the Pikes. Before we continue, a word from today's sponsor, Star Trek Fleet Command Mobile, a free-to-play story-driven open-world MMO with real-time starship combat. You'll get to customize your own crew from a list of iconic Star Trek characters, including Captain Kirk and Picard. More importantly, you also get to customize and upgrade your perfect ship, whether it's the Enterprise D or USS Voyager, or something a bit more exotic like a Klingon Warbird or Romulan Gladius. Choose carefully though, because each one of these ships belong in one of 3 classes, and each one of these classes have their own strengths and weaknesses. Once you're set, head off into the unknown, chasing story missions, adventure, and riches. Your crew's lives are in your hands because you are in control of the bridge. And right now, if you check out this game and reach level 5, they'll gift you Michael Burnham, the commanding officer of the USS Discovery. Check out the link in the description below for more details about Star Trek Fleet Command. And thank you for your patience. On to the rest of the video. Fortunately, Fett didn't have that much time to prepare his army, so it's much smaller in numbers than what the Pikes have to offer, and so he'll have to optimally use his forces in order to have a chance to win. Boba Fett and Fennec Shand seem to be not so great at strategy because their plan is terrible. First, they take their limited amount of manpower and spread it across the city. The idea is to use these soldiers as scouts so that Fett's army can keep track of enemy movements. However, none of these soldiers are hidden. Many of them are even brandishing their weapons, as if they were posted as sentries, not scouts. The Gamorrean guards, who have no ranged weapons, are posted on the high ground in the Klatooinian territory near the spaceport. They would get easily picked off. The Modders are hanging out near the Aqualish territory in the worker quarters. It's a very claustrophobic place with a lot of choke points and ambush positions. The Modders would get trapped. And lastly, Fett posts Santo in front of City Hall, right in the middle of Trandoshan territory. You know, the same Trandoshans that Santo attacked randomly in the Sanctuary nightclub a few nights before. Even if there wasn't something like a major gang war about to happen here, there's a good chance that Santos would get jumped while walking through the Trandoshans territory. They do not like him. Now listen, I'm not against spreading out your troops to make them cover more area and serve as your eyes and ears. That's typically a good idea. But because of the numerical disadvantage Fett's army faces, I would deploy them like guerrilla units. The Modders with their Vespas would be great for hit-and-run tactics. They seem to know the city well and have a lot of mobility. The Pike's larger force will be visible, and they'll have to move large amounts of people and material to attack the Fetts. Starting brief skirmishes with these troops all across the city will not only make Fett's army seem a lot bigger, but also confuse the Pike Syndicate and probably delay them for some time. Now, originally, Boba Fett wanted to go to his palace, but I would argue that the Modders are right to convince him to stay in the center of Mos Espa. My reasons are a bit different, though. This isn't about assuring the townspeople that you're there to protect them. It's more of a strategic kind of move. It's all about making the most efficient use of your forces. Holding out in the castle might extend your defensive capabilities, but ultimately, the Pikes have a lot more people, and they will surround your castle and start a siege. Boba Fett will be effectively trapped inside of his palace, and the Pikes will get what they want, which is to continue shipping spice through this territory. A better move for Boba Fett is actually to allow the Pike Syndicate into the city freely, and then begin striking at them from the shadows. Saw Gerrera and his partisans would commonly use this strategy to engage much larger and better equipped forces. Another huge missed opportunity was Boba Fett and Din Djarin's inability to gather the Tusken Raiders to their side. No one even knows how many tribes are out in the desert, but they could easily outnumber the Pike Syndicate forces just by themselves. The least Din could have done was contact the tribe of Tuskens who had brokered a peace with the people of Freetown. Finally, putting the rest of your forces that you have left in the Sanctuary is a really bad idea as well. I know symbolically it means a lot for the people of Mos Espa, but trapping yourself in a location in the middle of the city without prepared defenses is pretty stupid. Plus, Boba Fett is pretty much alone by this point. Fennec Shand is sent away to go assassinate the Pike leadership, which is a great idea, but that should have happened a lot earlier. Now, in the midst of the battle, you just called away one of your best assassins and best fighters. Fennec Shand obviously should have been placed in a tower, like the one the Rancor King Kong's. Every crime lord needs some Overwatch. And so when the battle starts, not only is Boba Fett's army completely pinned down and surprised, the only place they were supposed to protect and reinforce, the Sanctuary, is now only being guarded by Din Djarin and Boba Fett. Like, what was the point of gathering all of those soldiers when at the end of the day, when the Pikes come, you only have one Mandalorian watching your back? To make matters worse, these two helmeted idiots think the best way out of their situation is some twisted death pact in which they both decide to fight to the death for honor, or something.
We'll both die in the name of honor. You sure you want to stay? This is the way.
They do survive, thankfully, because the miners of Freetown appear in the nick of time with an armored transport with a heavier blaster. But why is this even necessary? These two Mandalorians have jetpacks, and with that, they can maintain the high ground and keep their distance. This back-to-back last stand kind of nonsense in the middle of the street is exactly why the Mandalorians, as cool as they are, just can't get their act together. People think they have an unfair advantage because of their armor, but the reality is Mandalorians need that armor because of their foolish adherence to honor. And so, like, the honor and the armor kind of cancel each other out. What Din Djarin and Boba Fett should be doing is flying from one rooftop to another while raining hell down onto the Pike Syndicate. Because as we all know, the most important thing in Star Wars is, let's all say it on three, guys at home, 3, 2, 1, the high ground. Now, some of Boba Fett's army managed to survive that first wave of attackers, and they rendezvous back in front of the Sanctuary and all find cover behind Freetown's newly arrived speeder. My immediate reaction to this was spacing, guys. One well-timed detonator and everyone dies. Well, not the guys with the helmets on. More importantly, guys, let me remind you that the Sanctuary has no strategic value whatsoever, and very little symbolic value as well. I mean, this thing was just recently blown up by a bomb. It's literally forgotten property. So why are all these people just hunched down outside behind this speeder? Spread out into the buildings around you, go into the higher floors, get on the roof, establish kill zones, overlapping fields of fire. Make the poorly armed Pike Syndicate, who are just sending PFIs at this point, really pay for all the ground they gain. And then there's this. Look, I actually like the mod kits. I mean, personally, I would have been a rocker because motorcycles are clearly better and much cooler than scooters. But in what world is this like an efficient movement, combat move? I mean, maybe this would have made sense if he was hurling a knife or something, but why? And then the two massive droid tanks arrive, complete James Cameron Terminator vibes again. It was really cool that Boba Fett waited until now to go and grab the Rancor. It's cool watching a giant robot fighting a monster because who doesn't love Godzilla? But you know what else is in Boba Fett's palace? A freaking N1 starfighter with proton torpedoes, which now that I think about it would probably flatten the entire city if used. But heck, even the N1's regular blasters would make short work of the pesky shield on that gigantic droid. That is, unless you could just roll a few droid poppers into the shield. You guys remember the Republic's sketchy Foreign Internal Defense Initiative when they sent a Jedi team to train a bunch of Mandalorian terrorists to fight against the Seppi droid army on the planets? Well, that was one of the first lessons. Go slow with the shield when you attack it. But anyway, one N1 starfighter is probably equal to like 100 gangbangers. It's just math and proton torpedoes at this point. The rest of Fett's army retreat to another building, where they have a standoff against another giant droid tank. These guys are packed shoulder to shoulder behind a small stone wall, firing at targets almost point blank. So this is one of my larger pet peeves with Star Wars battle scenes in general, and that is that the combatants are usually standing in the open without cover, and they're just way too close to each other. I mean, even in urban combat situations, you're gonna see much more distance between the individual fighters. People will rarely stand in the middle of the street and exchange fire with another person point blank, because there's something called self-preservation. So the Battle of Mos Espa is over for now, and it's just as confusing and messy as the entire series. I mean, this is a very, very confusing TV series for sure, and it did a lot of great things, but ultimately I think it tackled way too many different storylines, which is why the finale is also so confusing, and it feels like it's designed to serve those storylines instead of making sense on its own. Well guys, let me know in the comment section below what you think about my analysis. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.